The U.S. federal budget reached an astonishing $6.5 trillion this year. Would you like to grab your share? There is a 100% legal way to secure a few million for yourself. It's called government contracting. This episode is all about landing well-paid government contracts. Stay tuned to learn what it takes to land your first government contract, how to outsource these contracts so you don't have to do the work yourself, and the common pitfalls to avoid that could land you in hot water with the government. This is Ryan Atkinson, and you're listening to the Upflip Podcast, where we uncover how great businesses are built, how they're run behind the scenes, and how you can replicate their success. Our guest today is Jason White, a government contracting expert with over 15 years of experience in the field. He built a system that landed him tens of millions in government contracts, and he doesn't have to lift a finger to fulfill them. Today, Jason will give you a quick rundown on how to do it yourself. Jason, welcome to the show. Super excited to have you.
What's up, buddy, man? Appreciate you for having me. When you say that word trillion, man, I just want a piece of it. That's the only thing. I just want a piece.
I think everyone wants a piece of it because when I said it, I was thinking the same thing. Maybe I need to be pivoting out of video marketing into government contracting. What I'm excited today to talk about is that, but before we dive into the nitty gritty of it, people are thinking, I want a piece. Let's first lay the groundwork of where you come from and how you got started with government contracting. So can you share with us kind of your journey into like federal contracts?
Yeah, man, that's too easy. I'm from a town called Norfolk, Virginia. So all of my military veterans, you know about the Tidewater area, 757, man. So there is where I found out about government contracting. And that was via my friend, because even though I served in the U.S. Coast Guard for 10 years, the Coast Guard didn't teach me about government contracting. My homeboy did, or made the attempt to. So while I was working at the gas station, he was trying to teach me about government contracting, but couldn't because he got locked up. So I had to be self-taught through the rabbit hole of YouTube University. And that was back in 2008, man. So you can imagine how terrible YouTube was back then. And that's how I got started, man.
I love that. So we're starting in 2008. Yeah, it's been 15, 16 years now. I want to ask, because when I think of government contracts, I'm thinking of planes. I'm thinking of like huge like machinery, like that type of government contracts. But what are like government contracts? Let's lay that groundwork as well.
So anytime I speak on the federal level. There's a state, there's a local, and there's the federal level. So I only speak on the federal level. So what a federal government contract is, the federal government is looking for a company to procure a certain product and or a certain service by way of bidding, and then they just take care of that product or service. That's all the contract is.
Interesting. And so these contracts, can you give us some areas that you can win a federal contract in? Can you kind of give us that range?
Yeah, man. So it's everything. Watch this. So I make it simple and then I'd be specific. Anything the federal government needs inside the federal government, they need it outside the federal government as well. So we talk about the planes, like you just talked about. We talking about military equipment, but now we even talking about pens, pencils, laptops, TVs, digital marketing, digital equipment, glasses, hats, shirts, anything that you need outside the federal government, you need it inside the federal government. And the federal government does a really good job of making a contract for it as well.
Okay, I love it. So this is expanding beyond $1 billion worth of like plane equipment into just like simple like pens and paper.
Yeah, but pens and paper can be billions of dollars because the federal government isn't a local agency or a state agency. The federal government is across all 50 states, right? So now you're looking at all of these states that needs a federal government contract with pens and pencils, and that's $1 billion right there, possibly.
Well, I mean, we're talking about a $6.5 trillion industry, so just a small piece of $1 billion is...
That's it. That's all I need. That's all
Let's talk about like securing a government contract. We're going to talk about the whole process here and like how to like get your first government contract and all that stuff. But can you kind of lay out those steps of like from start to finish, like what this process looks like?
Yeah, man, it's pretty simple. I think there's a lot of people online. There's a lot of people that got their YouTube channels and they make this thing so difficult. They make it so hard. They want to talk over your head versus helping talk to you so you can easily digest it. So you want to get into a federal government contract. It's a simple process. You go to sam.gov, you look for the product or the service that you want to provide the federal government. You submit a proposal and you wait to see if you won or lost. That's it. And you do it again and again and again. And obviously, there's a couple of learning curves because you got to understand government jargon. You got to understand pricing. And then you also got to understand who to properly partner up with. Because the way I teach government contracting, I don't do any of the work. I sub all of my work out. So you got to properly understand who to partner up with, their pricing and yours. But it's just as simple as that. Go to sam.gov, find the product, find the service, submit the proposal, wash, rinse, repeat.
You're making it sound so simple where I might be making about 100K here in the next few weeks just doing federal contracts.
I want to make it known, like I make it sound easy because the process is easy. And I've been doing it since 2008 because you're talking to me. Now, obviously, somebody that has never heard of federal government contracting and or has never dabbled with it, it's not going to turn out that easy to them in the beginning. But nothing is hard about it. Nothing is overwhelming about it. You take your time, you understand what you're doing, it will become very easy, just like I'm saying it is.
I love it. Let's talk about winning that first contract, because basically you just need to go to sam.gov. You need to like put your proposal in, all that good stuff. How do you like stand out and win that first government contract? Like, what are some tips that you have?
Man, a lot of these people think it's like all in your numbers and, you know, how long you've been doing business, but it's really not. The federal government took a chance on my company back in 2008, and I had no experience at all. I had no network, and I had no government contracting affiliations. They gave me an opportunity because I knew how to properly network, and my paperwork was amazing. I knew how to properly network, right, just by having human-to-human interaction, because a lot of people think you still need to do everything by computer and email. That's not always how you get a government contract, especially with no experience. Also, too, my paperwork was immaculate because over each submission, I got better and better and better. I would never tell anybody or make it seem like soon as I submitted my first federal government proposal, I won. No, I lost way more proposals than I've been awarded. I started in 2008, but I didn't win my first contract until 2011. So it personally took me 3 years because I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have a mentor. I hate to read and I don't have no patience. And I barely graduated from high school. So that's just a little context on why it took me so long. But, you know, it's not taking people that long today, but I just stuck with it and understood, all right, the key to winning this thing is me properly networking and me having my paperwork in order. And that's the best tips I can have for anybody.
Yeah, I think the networking one's pretty intuitive for people. The paperwork one for me, though, is like kind of interesting. What do you mean like you had your paperwork in like order and like you stood out that way? I think that's super interesting.
Yeah. So you got to think about it, man. These contract specialists and these people that work for the government. Well, let me say this. Every time I say networking, a lot of times people think that's the easier out of the two. That's the hardest out of the two. How you going to network with a contract specialist? Where you going to go? I'm not telling you to go to a government contracting conference and follow these people around. And when I say network, a lot of people say, like you just thought too. I saw it and we like, yeah, that I can network. Yeah, you probably can. But networking for a federal government contract is a different beast, right? So that is a different skill set. But when we talk about the paperwork, you have to make it so somebody can read this information well. Most people are corporate minded, so they add all this glitz and glamour to stuff that the federal government don't even care about. The federal government is black and white. They ask for some documentation, send it to them. That's all. If they don't ask for no documentation, don't send them extra documentation. And most people send all this extra stuff that they don't care about, and it end up getting lost in the sauce. So whatever they're asking for, provided for them, that's all, no more, no less.
All right. I like that. I think that gives some good tips on the paperwork. But of course, then I have to ask about the networking. Like, what are the different skill sets it takes to like network with like federal contracts?
Number one, you got to understand this individual that you're going to properly talk to is not the federal government. They're a human being that has a job with the federal government agency. That's the first thing. So you got to switch your mindset and you don't got to do a whole song and dance. They not the government. They just a person that works for the federal government. The second thing is you can be very vulnerable with these people. When this is what I mean by that. If this is your first time getting ready to submit a proposal for a federal government agency, you can say that. I don't care who you are. Everybody hates the person in the room that thinks they know everything. Everybody hates that individual. Don't try to network with a contract specialist thinking you know everything, because they're going to instantly start to say, well, if you know everything, why are you talking to me? So understand that this person is not the federal government and exude a high level of vulnerability, because the human action or reaction will always kick in. Anytime I see somebody needs help, I'm going to help them. Obviously, if it's my job at the moment and it's the contracting specialist job to help out.
I like that. So I think we've kind of hammered home like how to stand out early on networking, your paperwork and all that good stuff. But how do you identify and target like the right government contracts for your business? Because a lot of people are thinking, okay, well, the process is there, but like how do I identify which contracts to actually go after?
All of them. Every last one. Let me tell you what, I am subbing out the work, right? So if I'm subbing out the work, that means I'm just doing what? I'm just managing the federal government's expectation to another company that's doing the work. And everybody can manage expectations. We do it all the time. Has anybody under the sound of my voice ever submitted their car to the auto mechanic? And when you went to the auto mechanic, you say, hey man, I just need an oil change. And they say, okay, cool. They sit you in the waiting room. When they come out of the waiting room, what does the mechanic say? You need a transmission. You need fuel line. You need this, you need that. And guess what? You go back and tell, hey, thank you for all that, but I only need an oil change. So guess what you did? You just managed the expectations of an auto mechanic on your car that's been doing their job for 15 years. If you know what the expectation is from the federal government, you can easily relate that and articulate that to somebody that's going to be doing the work. So I don't teach how to niche down. I teach there are 96,000 opportunities. So if it's 96,000 opportunities, why would I teach to only be in one lane? And we're going after every opportunity because there's a business and a company out there made for that particular opportunity. I just got to partner up with them.
I think that gives some like pretty good context on like, you don't need to niche down as long as you're subcontracting. And of course that leads me to like the next question that someone is going to intuitively think of is like, how do you find these subcontractors for like a contract that you win?
Yeah, man. So you're not going to reach out to your mama and them. You're not going to network with your cousin and them. Why? Because they don't look at you like the boss that you are. They look at you as the little cousin that used to pee in the bed when we was 5 years old. You know what I mean? So you're going to find the subcontractors in all of these areas with my best friend, Google. That's it, right? Google is going to give you who you can reach out to partner up with to do that particular work or to find that particular product. You can't worry about how to properly vet and do all this and that and the third because you have to trust your instinct. Everybody can have what I like to call a BS radar. So even if you get on the phone and give somebody an interview, they can still be lying. Even if they ask for documentation to be sent over, that could be false documentation. You only going to know this company can do the work until they get out there and start to get busy. That's what the government did with me. The government gave me a shot in 2008. They have no information on me. I had no experience. And the name of my company was called I Get Money LLC. But they gave me a shot, you know what I mean? So ever since then, I kind of took that model from the federal government, and that's how I do my subcontractors as well. So just use Google, you'll be fine.
Dude, I absolutely love that. Is that still the name of your LLC?
Not anymore, man. I had to change it. But back in 2008, I was like, man, I need a company name. I'm about to get some money. Okay, I Get Money LLC.
That's amazing. I love that. And I feel like a super important part, since you won your first contract, like back in 2011, I think you said 2008, is it easier once you start getting those contracts to like get renewals on contracts because you built like a working relationship? They actually know what you're like, or can you talk about that a little bit?
So the word easy is relative. So I'm going to say yes, because the goal for anybody with federal government contractor is to be what I like to call, what the government calls sole source, where you don't have to bid anymore. You don't have to look through sam.gov anymore. You don't have to do none of that. One of the agencies just reaches out to you, and then next thing you know, you're telling them how much you want to charge for that particular job, and then that's all that's it. So yes, over time, after you win so many awards, it does get super easy because you're showing your past performance and showing that you could do the job and you could do different jobs underneath the same company umbrella. So yeah, it definitely becomes easier.
Yeah, I feel like that's just like with anything in business. Once you've like proved to someone that you can do the work, even in business like this and like just service businesses in general, it becomes a lot easier. What are some other things about like subcontractors? How do you build that reliable network of subcontractors? Because obviously like there's 96,000 contracts out there to be won. I'm sure you've done jobs repeat, but like, yeah, what are some ways to like really vet out and find those good ones?
I mean, you don't know who is good until they do the work. I'm talking about even down to some of the big major companies, right? Some of the big major companies can be garbage. They can literally be trash. So my whole philosophy about subcontractors are getting on the phone, talking to them, and using your gut. Like I said, everybody got a BS radar. Even right now, whoever's listening to the sound of my voice, they can tell, man, this dude BS and he don't know what he's talking about. Or they can say, man, this dude sounds like he knows what he's talking about. I'm going to give it a shot. It's the same way with the subcontractors. As you're going through some paperwork, as you're going through some documentation with your subcontractor and you're on the phone, you can tell if they know how to do this work or if they Googling stuff as they go. It's like, what? And now you don't even have to be in that particular industry to know they either lying or they standing tall. So you got to give it the opportunity. I think one of the biggest misconceptions with federal government contracting is the federal government will blackball you or they'll ban you. If you don't get this job done, oh my, you're under so much pressure, you can get blackballed. That's not the case, man. You just can't make the same mistake with the federal government over and over and over again. So once your subcontractor make a mistake, you just get them out of there, put somebody else in their place.
Can I get a drum roll, please? Because we are giving away a free lifetime access to the Academy for one lucky listener. And it's super simple to participate. All you need to do is leave us a review on Apple and then send us a screenshot as proof. It takes 5 minutes for lifetime access to the Outflip Academy for free. So 2 steps, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, send us a screenshot, and the link to participate is in the show notes below. If you are a wannabe entrepreneur, the courses in there are so invaluable for you to actually get that first business idea off the ground. And then for the current business owners that are looking to sharpen their skills, there are a ton of courses in there for you. And the best part, you're going to be able to connect with other top-notch entrepreneurs in your field to network with them and learn from them. The winner will be announced on July 26th. All you need to do, leave us a review on Apple, send us a screenshot of proof, and you guys can find more details in the show notes below. If someone is just getting started, if someone is listening to this and they're like, man, that guy does know what he's talking about, like I'm actually giving this a shot, I'm pulling up sam.gov right now, would you advise them to check out certain contracts over other ones because they're easier to complete, they're just getting started? If so, like what would those be?
All of them. Like I'm trying to tell you, man, listen, the word easy is relative, but if I'm not doing the work, they all easy. Now, as I say that, I will say this. If you can't properly articulate what you're reading over to a subcontractor, then just go to another contract, right? So now we're going to use the word easy in this tense. If you can't articulate it, then it's not easy. If you can articulate it, then it's easy. And then you use that information that you can articulate and find a subcontractor. But we going for everything, man. I never want anybody to start out thinking that, oh, let me just go for some janitorial because it's cleaning, or let me go for some lawn care because it's cutting grass. To truth be told, those are some of the hardest contracts to do in the beginning because you, as a newbie, actually got to teach the person who just started a lawn care company how to actually conduct themselves in that government facility. And it's not easy. So those aren't the easier contracts like everybody thinks. So everything is easy. You just got to be able to articulate what the expectations are.
I am curious, does the federal government ever ask you, like, well, are your employees like in-house or are you subcontracting? Like, how do you kind of navigate that if that question ever like comes up?
Yeah, no, it comes up all the time. And you don't navigate it. You just tell the truth. Hey, Mr. White, are you doing this work or are you subcontracting? I'm subcontracting it out. Okay, thank you. The biggest misconception with federal government contracting, the way I teach it, is that you have to have some type of long, drawn out corporate answer to the government if they ask, right? If they're asking, just tell them. If they're not asking, you still gonna tell them. Like, you still gonna, via your paperwork, via your conversation, you're still gonna end up telling them that you're subbing out this work. We don't hide. We don't try to find loopholes. If they say, hey, Mr. White, you can't sub this work out, thank you. And I go on to another solicitation that I can. So I don't try to navigate it. I just be honest and truthful and upfront with the federal government, because at the end of the day, ain't nobody going to jail for this. Ain't nobody, you know what I mean? And don't nobody want to tiptoe the line of what's right and what's wrong. I don't find loopholes. I don't tiptoe. If I can do it, I'm going to do it. If I can't do it, I'm not doing it. I'm black and white, just like the federal government.
I love that. I like how just like straight up and like to the point you are with like all of this, honestly. Just like, here's your answer and basically black and white, as you've been saying. I want to ask about like some of the most profitable contracts like you've secured. Can you talk about like some of the best contracts you've had just to kind of get the wheel spinning for some people?
Yeah, for sure, man. I think over time, my subleasing commercial space to the federal government is very profitable. My experience and elevator maintenance contracts have always been very profitable. And portable toilets and portable hand washing stations too. It is always a festival. It's always a festival that the federal government want to put on. It's always a ceremony. It's always a closing of a base or opening of a base. Man, they need porta potties and portable hand washing stations like crazy. And obviously elevated maintenance take care of itself, right? So these are just a few. And let me go way, way left. I've been awarded a wig making contract as well. So I just want to give look at your face.
That's insane.
I just want to give everybody what the possibilities are, because when I say everything, I'm literally talking about everything, and I'm not niching myself down for nothing.
A question that came up to mind, let's stick with like the porta potty one. So do you first like get a quote from like a porta potty company and then submit your proposal? Or do you submit a proposal for X amount of dollars and just try and find like a subcontractor that's like beneath that? Or like, how does that work?
Yeah, you can't do it that way. You can't submit a dollar amount first and then circle back and say, hey man, I only got $1,000. They like, what? Our porta potty started $3,000. So no, you can't do no work with us. So you got to go find out how much they charging for their porta potties and their hand washing stations first. After you find out how much they're charging, then you put your money on top of that. Then you submit. But you got to find out what they charging and go from there first.
Yeah. What do you typically mark up? Are you able to kind of share that?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not sharing that. But I would say this, though. But I say this. I don't do percentages. Percentages will shoot you in the foot every time. Anybody that does federal government contracting and does percentages, they are losing money. Number one, we already losing money. Why? Because we're bidding on contracts. Because we're bidding and we don't know what the full price is from the federal government, we already leaving money on the table. But you definitely leaving money on the table if you are starting to do percentages, because every contract will be different. So if you go into each contract saying, I'm going to charge 15% each contract, man, you're doing it wrong and you're not profitable. Not like you can be, but no, we don't do percentages. I'll definitely say that.
Interesting. Okay. A question that also came up from that. So the government, do they set like a magical number of like, we're going to spend up to $100,000 on this project and you don't know what that is? You just kind of throw your number in and hope it's like close as possible to it?
They got companies doing like fighting each other like gladiators, man. To your point, yes, we do not know what the full price is of this job, right? Because if we did, if everybody bidding on it knew it was $100,000, how much would everybody bid? $100,000. Everybody bid would be the exact same. And now it's not a competition. The government is having us compete against each other with pricing, paperwork, and availability.
Ah, okay.
Pricing, paperwork, and availabilities. But if you tell us, hey, this job is going to be $100,000, you're going to lose out on half of the people that can possibly do the job. And then everybody going to come in at $100,000. So that's why they don't do it that way. So yeah, man, they got us competing against each other and not knowing what the price points are so we can come in with the best, most capable price.
Holy smokes. I think that is crazy that you don't know what the price point is. So you're just kind of like throwing a number out there and hoping it like lands with them.
Right, right. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to win and you're going to lose. Nothing is a sure thing as it relates to when you submit your proposal. Nothing is a sure thing. My mindset is I'm cool with that, because if there's 96,000 contract opportunities, man, I got 96,000 shots. I'm putting them up.
You're putting up like Steph Curry in a game 7. That is.
I'm putting them up.
Do you have like a formula then, or does it just kind of come from intuition on like how you should price your contracts?
Yeah, over time, you're going to get better. Like I said, everybody in the federal code family knows how to accurately price these solicitations based off of what I've been successfully doing since 2008. But over time, you'll get better. You'll understand industries. You'll understand the time frame you're in. What I mean by that is it an election year? Is it not an election year? Have we just had a big national disaster? Whatever's going on in the world can affect your pricing up or down, and you'll get better over time understanding what that looks like for you.
I was just going to ask, are there like seasons to this where like in the summer it gets busier and like in the winter gets, or is it like very high demand at all times? Yeah.
So remember, the 96,000 opportunities, that's every single day. That's not up and down. That number doesn't get higher just because it's hotter outside or lower because it's cold. Because remember, this federal government contract. So where it's cold at, it's warm somewhere else. And where it's warm at, it's cold somewhere else. So that doesn't matter. Now, there are fiscal times. So the federal government operates on a fiscal calendar. So there are times during the fiscal year where the activity of the contract specialist is higher than others. And that's a no-brainer. That's the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter of the fiscal year is the highest activity level, but the contract that's available is the same.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, because we're Q2, Q3 here, so everyone get ready for a busy Q4. It sounds like. I'm curious that during an election year, do the budgets go up or do they like go down?
Most of that stays the same. It's just you'll start to see more of a certain industry. You'll start to see more security contracts. You'll start to see more IT contracts. So based on the time of the year, you'll just see a heavier load of a certain industry based off of what's going on.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense for us. Before we get to our fan blitz questions, if there's one thing someone should know about federal contracts and winning these things, like I'm sure we've talked about it, but can you please reiterate, like what should they know about federal contracts before we move to our last section?
Yeah, man. What they need to know is they need to be consistent. If they don't know what consistency is, federal government contract, not for them. This is a skill set business based off of consistency. So if you don't know how to work on your skill sets, which is reading and communicating, and I know a lot of people say, I already know how to read, Jay White, I already know how to communicate, but you don't know how to communicate until you're talking to somebody about something you have no knowledge about. That's a different form of communication, man. So you got to be able to effectively communicate and read very well. And you have to build that on consistency, because you submitting one contract every now and then, that ain't gonna do nothing but just piss you off, right? Ah, man, I submitted a contract last month. Why I ain't win yet? Because you just submitted one. That's why you ain't win. You can't put your hopes and dreams on one proposal. So you have to build off consistency. And that's the one thing I tell people you need to have.
Okay, I like it. And one more question off that. What would be a good percentage that they should shoot for? If they submit like 100 of these, how many would you expect to win?
I can't tell you. I would be a liar if I say out of 100, you're going to win 30. I just tell you my personal stats. So I have 7 businesses in SAM.gov registered right now. So each month we submit around 10 to 12 proposals, and we win at least 1 or 2 out of 10 to 12. That's my company's personal stats.
Okay. I think it gives us good insight. But let's move to our fan blitz questions, because I know people are super excited to ask you questions. These are actually submitted from our community. And guys, if you want to join world-class entrepreneurs, you can go to www.youtube.com/upflip and submit your questions there. But Jason, last 5 questions for you.
That's good.
Number 1, how can a catering service go about landing government contracts?
So there's tons of catering companies. I like to think of government contracting the way I teach it like this. If you go into the government space saying, look what I got, look at my company, pick me, it's going to take you a while. But if you go into there and they got 96,000 opportunities, you scratch their back off of one of their opportunities, then you can always circle back and say, hey, but look, federal government, I actually have a catering company. Because you won a federal government contract and successfully handling that expectation, you got the ear to the federal government. And now you can always circle back and they can create a contract based around your company versus you raise your hands all high trying to get noticed saying, this is my company.
I love that. Good stuff. Number 2, what was your biggest lesson learned that you wish you knew when you first got started?
That I need to have patience, man. Nobody told me how long or short it was going to take. And nobody told me what my time expectations were. So if I knew to have patience, I probably would have been successful way faster. So you got to have patience.
Patience and everything. I love it. Number 3, what department/people do you advise we get in touch with?
All of them, man. All of them. But I will say this. If you have departments that you keep seeing while you're on SAM.gov, reach out to them. But it's 52 departments in the federal government. Reach out to all of them. Don't short yourself.
I love it. Number 4, can you tell us about your most bizarre business encounter?
Yeah, man. So I won a federal government contract, and this company that I reached out to said, yeah, man, we have the equipment. So they needed 6 employees, 6 pieces of equipment. So my man said he had it all. So I said, okay, cool. So the first day of work, I get a phone call. He said, hey, man, when is the rest of the equipment coming out? I said, what? It should be out there with the rest of the employees. I said, hold on one second. Call my subcontractor. I said, hey, what's going on? How many employees do you got? He said, oh, right now, man, it's just me and my cousin on one piece of equipment. It was 2 people, 1 piece of equipment. He was thinking to get paid by me and go ahead on and afford the rest of the equipment and afford the payroll. That was the most craziest thing that happened to me to this point. It was good because I told you, if they can't do the work, get them out of there and put somebody else in there. But that's the most bizarre that's ever happened to me to this point.
That's so funny. That's something you learned from. But very last one for you. What's the biggest misconception people have about your position?
Yeah, that federal government contracting is hard. That's the biggest misconception. People think it's hard. People think you got to have 2 years. They think you need to have all these certifications. They think the strategy of getting somebody to do the work for you, you can't do it. It's just like, what? Like, man, when people go down YouTube University, they get the rabbit hole, they get lost. And they get lost because if you don't know, you don't know. All of those are misconceptions. You can definitely sub out the work with federal government contracting, and it is not hard. I understand the word easy is relative, but it will become easy once you become consistent at doing government contract.
Well, Jason, you were consistently good throughout this whole episode, so I appreciate you being here. If someone wants to learn more about you, learn and say, hey, I want to get started with federal contracts, but I want more advice, where can they learn more about you?
Man, tell them reach out to me on Instagram at @IamJasonWhite_. @IamJasonWhite_. And then you can go to my website, The Federal Code, CODE, thefederalcode.com.
Guys, this was an awesome episode with Jason White. 3 quick takeaways for you guys. Number 1, if you're wanting to get started with this, you don't need to niche down. You just need to apply to as many contracts as possible. As I asked him multiple times, where should you get started? How do you get started? All of them. That's what he said. Apply to all of them. Send proposals in for all of them. Number 2, even though we are dealing with the federal government, it's actually easier to get started than you think. All you need to do is submit as many proposals as possible, get them the documentation, and then get going on that contract. Number 3, if you are going to do this, subcontracting is obviously the way to go. You don't need to build up a team to do this. Just find subcontractors to do the work. And if you're asked about it, just say and be honest that you're subcontracting. And guys, what our team at Upflip wants more than anything else is for our listeners to be inspired and equipped to start successful businesses. I have an episode for you that you have to listen to if you haven't already. It's episode 126, where I sit down with Chris Ducker and talk through his expertly crafted advice for building the business of your dreams. The link is in the show notes below. Jason, thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate you being here.
Man, too easy, man. Appreciate you.